General Motors workers just recently went on the largest labor strike in recent years. Now, it's being reported that nearly 50,000 UAW workers have stopped production at more than 50 GM facilities nationwide. Now, this is in order to spur new labor negotiations with the with the auto giant. Now, one of the reasons for these strikes is, of course, you have the normal union negotiating, which has fallen through. But one thing that they're hung up on is the fact that GM is not sharing its profitability with their workforce. Last year, the company pulled in about roughly $11 billion in pre tax profits and about $35 billion over the last 3 years combined. So GM is actually doing very, very well. In fact, the CEO of GM is doing exceptionally well and now is under fire for not sharing that with the workers, with the workforce. In fact, these workers are still being treated as if they were in 2007. Now, I'm giving an example. Is Jesse Kelly. Jesse Kelly is a 29-year-old mother of one, and she's a member of the UAW and is out there striking. Now, she talked to the Huffington Post, and for one, she said, I'm more than able to go on strike for the next 3 months. I'm in it for the long haul. That's awesome. Young person saying, no, I'm ready to do this. I need to do this so that I can better working conditions for not just me, but everyone else as well. And you're going to see that in a couple of the demands here that they're really getting hung up on. But she told the Huffington Post about one of the reasons, one of the impetuses for the strike. Quote, they shuffle us into a room every 6 months and praise these record breaking profits, but then expect us to give back. We just do not understand right now why the company is still acting like we're in bankruptcy when for the last 4 years they've been extremely profitable. They got bailed out by the government, remember, and then ended up paying back government loans, and now they're incredibly profitable. Now, I understand that companies will try to keep their costs low, especially labor costs. I get that, right? But you're doing pretty well. Even now that there's slightly slower auto sales, the switch to electric vehicles, but at the same time, they're doing way way better than 2007. Again, they're incredibly profitable, and so the union workers they're looking at this and they're saying, "Wait, you're doing really well now. Back in 2007, we made a lot of concessions to make sure that the company could continue to survive through its bankruptcy process. Well, you're profitable. Well, why are we still being asked to do concessions?" Now, what concessions am I talking about? One of them includes a two-tier wage system. Now, right now, it actually takes newer workers about 8 years in order to reach the top pay rate of about $30 an hour, earned by longer-term veterans. Now, you might think, well, $30 an hour, that's a lot of money, right? It's technically lower middle wage. Lower middle class wages, right? So you're doing okay at $30 an hour, but you're not a rich person, right? You're sort of middle class. Now, it takes a long time for people to be able to reach that, and so the union members are saying, "Look, we would like to get people to get there a little bit faster." That seems fair, right? Now, one of the concessions was that newer workers never get there. Now, that's a compromise the union made as the company went towards bankruptcy. Now that that's over, they made they rolled back a little bit and said, okay, it's going to take people 8 years or 2 full union contracts in order to get to that pay rate. They're doing the same work, but they're getting paid less for it. Okay. And I guess they have to earn their way up to a higher wage. And it takes quite a while. Workers want to reduce that time. Now, another big issue with the workers is temp labor, right? Temp workers. The company says about 7% of its U.S. workforce is temporary workers. though the share can vary significantly from department to department, from shift to shift. Some workers temp for at least 2 years before transitioning to full time and gaining a measure of job security, as well as better pay and benefits. Now, I worked as a temp before, so I feel this personally. When you're a temp, you are paid less, you don't have benefits, and you can be let go for any time for any reason. So, no job stability in that, okay? So now I wasn't at GM, right? But I worked at a boat factory. And so I was a temp there for a few months, hurt myself, ended up getting let go because, not because of anything that I did, but because of the fact that I had a workplace injury. Thousands of temp workers face a similar situation all over the country. So now there are negotiations that are taking place, right? Now, union leadership has not shared the company's latest proposal with members. GM had disclosed a few pieces of its offer, including promises to allocate production to 2 facilities that have been idle, an overall investment of $7 billion in UAW represented plants, and worker bonuses of $8,000 for ratifying the contract. Now, the company says that's a strong offer, made in good faith. However, pay increases and benefits were not specified, nor were these two major issues. Excuse me. These two major issues were not addressed. How long it takes for a worker to reach max pay, and temp workers. So now, here's the thing. This is why I think that there's a lot of worker solidarity, right? People like Kelly care about this, as well as people like Beth Barrio. Now, she's a parts handler at GM's processing center in Burton, Michigan. And she said that guaranteeing that more temps convert to traditional status is a priority for her and her coworkers. Now, Barrio started with GM in 2014. She was a temp for about 18 months before becoming a full-time employee. She also has not reached the highest pay rate. So again, two issues, right? Now, HuffPost describes her as being out on the picket line at her plant on Monday and found it very difficult to convince temps to join the strike because they felt vulnerable. Now, she estimated that nearly half of the department in her evening shift is temporary because of the shift is less desirable. Okay. She said, quote, they have temps who come in and are next to people making twice what they make. A lot of them were scared to even walk out. We had to explain to them, if you walk out with us, the union is going to fight for you. But then added, hey, I'd be scared too. So again, that's what temp workers have to deal with, right? So now, Crain's Detroit Business also reported on Monday that GM wants workers to bear a significantly larger share of the healthcare burden. The workers generally have excellent health coverage, according to HuffPost, and are responsible for about 3 to 4% of the cost. According to Crain's, GM's initial offer would have hiked that share to about 15%, a proposal the union flat out rejected. Well, I don't blame them for that. From 3 to 4% to 15%. You know what would solve that problem? Not just labor negotiations, but Medicare for all. Medicare for all would actually take the burden off of those companies like GM and allow them to continue to pay their workers a fair wage and actually help these both the workers and the company. But absent from that, 15% is ridiculous. Barrio said, quote, they're trying to start eroding a lot of the progress our forefathers made through the union. And of course, that's what they want to do. Understand that GM is a big corporation that is answerable to its shareholders. Of course, nothing wrong with that. But the thing is, to balance out corporate power, you need people power. We need labor unions there to give people a voice. And labor unions, the biggest weapon that they have is a strike. And they are using that weapon to try and get a fair representation for their temp workers, who aren't even part of the union, by the way, but they're fighting for temp workers anyway, and they're fighting for their new employees. That's worker solidarity, man. Now, one last quote here from Kelly. Kind of shows her resolve. We as membership have prepared to say that this could be a long strike. We stood by GM in bankruptcy. We took concessions and we understood why we needed to at that time. If this was 2007, that would be understandable, but not now when it just looks like corporate greed. So they are willing to stand by to strike for as long as it takes to fight against corporate greed and ensure help for their fellow employees. This is why we need unions across the country. This is why union membership is starting to go up now, because people are seeing, once again, oh, that it turns out, you know what, I actually do get fair representation and I do get camaraderie when I'm actually able to join a union, when I'm actually able to bargain collectively with the people that I work with for fair wages and fair working conditions. This country has for a long time needed a brand new labor movement. And hopefully stuff like this and the increased focus on corporate greed will finally get people to realize we need strong labor rights, and we'll start to defend those rights and to expand them. Because you know what? You know what made America great? Speaking of MAGA, right? Labor rights. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.